To close out this mini-series, we'll now return to the biblical text. In an earlier example we alluded to, which critics say proves New Testament stories are simply ripped-off versions of Old Testament stories, and so have no basis in history. Here's a comparison of the story of Elisha feeding some men miraculously in the wilderness, with the story of Jesus doing the same, in parallel columns. In light of what we've related in prior vids, it's clear that we've maintained that this was an instance where Jesus intentionally set up a situation in which he could imitate Elisha, and in fact surpass and show himself superior to Elisha. Critics say that the Gospel authors invented the story to make Jesus look more impressive than Elisha. But if the Gospel authors are capable of coming up with the idea of this story to make Jesus look more impressive, then it stands to reason that Jesus is just as capable of having and acting upon the same idea. Now let's discuss the significance of each of those 6 points, and whether any of them indicate fictionalizing by the New Testament authors. The first point is that in both cases we have a large group gathered in a remote place without food. It's hardly difficult for Jesus to arrange for a meeting in a remote place, especially in an era when urban locations were relatively rare, and remote locations so easy to find. The designation of both groups as large reflects a bit of semantic equivocation by critics. Elisha's group numbered 100, while Jesus' groups numbered 4,000 and 5,000. By collapsing both groups into the common description large, the critics create a parallel that doesn't tell the whole story of what's in the data. That is an example of what we call the least common denominator description in the last vid. The last element in this one, without food, may seem unusual, but it really isn't. In an age before there was a way to protect food from perishing, it's no surprise that most or all of the people present in both cases didn't carry or have food with them. That's just a function of life in the ancient world, not a unique correspondence between the stories that proves fictionalizing. Item 2 compares the amount and type of food offered, 5 loaves and 2 fish versus 20 loaves. Here there's nothing special. Bread was the staple of the ancient diet, and would count for most of the calories consumed by the average person. So it's not like Elisha or Jesus are going to be offering, say, filet mignon. The third item is that both Elisha and Jesus told a disciple or a servant to feed the group. This is one point critics may think is particularly significant, but aside from the fact that this is obviously something easy for Jesus to order done in order to imitate the prior story, this is also reflective of a commonplace. As personalities of some reputation and honor, it would be far more natural for both Elisha and Jesus to have those under their command do the work. Item 4 is the correspondence in which someone present protests concerning the number of people present versus the amount of food available. Item 5 refers to people receiving the food, and item 6 refers to scraps being left over. We can take care of all of these at once, as they all reflect natural events we would expect to occur if Jesus actually reenacted Elisha's miracle. For the last one, we can also add a commonplace of their social world. In many cultures, it is considered polite to not finish your meal and to leave a scrap behind. We've only discussed these 2 stories and the comparisons made between them, but the errors of the critics in deducing that the New Testament authors were merely writing fiction, because of these similarities, falls to the same facts and logic in each case. In the future, we may profile a few more examples, but for now, the principles we've laid out will give you an idea where the critics are going wrong.